It was after World War II, and the Americans were going to liberate all the concentration camps. Every soldier was given a different camp to approach and to liberate these poor Jewish inmates that were left over after this horrific war. One American soldier was given a concentration camp that had 250 little children that were still left alive from the thousands that were brought into that camp. As he was standing outside this camp, and he was thinking to himself, what will I bring these children? What will I tell these children? And he remembered that one of the things he was told from the American training him before he left off to the shores of Germany was don't give them any food, because once you give them food, their stomachs will shrivel up and then they're going to die. So he stands in front of the concentration camp and he feels his pockets, and all he has in his pockets are a few candies. But he says he knows that he cannot give it to them because these children will die. He takes 2 steps forward and steps into this camp, and lined up in front of him are 250 children with tears in their eyes. One little child steps forward and starts crying, and he says, "Mr. Soldier, I'm hungry. Maybe you can give me something to eat." The soldier was standing there holding the candy in his pocket, and he knew that this child was starved, must have not eaten for days. If he ate anything, it was a small piece of bread. The first thing he wanted to do was give him this candy. He puts his hand to his pocket, and then he looks up at the child with tears in his eyes and says, "My child, I'm sorry, I have nothing for you." And as the child's face crumbles, he suddenly looks up at him with a small smile on his face and says, "My child, but I have something that I can give you." He opens his arms wide and embraces the child, and the two begin crying on each other's shoulders. As they were crying, the soldier and this little child, who didn't have parents, didn't have a family anymore, didn't have anybody left, he looks up and he sees a long line standing in front of him. 249 children are standing there waiting for a hug. When the soldier came back to the United States after the war, and he kept on remembering the scene of the children lined up, crying in his arms, he decided he's going to do some research and follow up what was happening with these children and what was happening with all the Holocaust survivors. And what he noticed was a pattern. Some people were able to come to America, come to the shores of America, come to the shores of Israel, build up a family, start a new life, begin from scratch again, even though they had lost so much. While there were many others that just didn't make it. They didn't get married, they didn't start having children, they didn't rebuild their lives. And he wanted to understand what was the difference between these two groups, and why was one able to survive while many others just couldn't push on and rebuild their lives. And what he came to the conclusion after years of research was those that had somebody to hug them, those that had somebody to support them, those that had someone to make sure that they had all their needs, they were the ones that were able to rebuild their lives. If we would be able to close our eyes for a moment and just dream, we would see little pink socks, a cute little stretchy, a name of a loved one, a bris, a kiddush, a vachnacht, a dream that each and every Jewish woman has. And then the dream shatters. The dream turns into Chevra Kadisha bills. The dream turns into painful doctor visits, difficult procedures, confusion, an emotional trip, and an empty home and silence. Hi, I'm Malkie Klaristenfeld from the Law Support Services of a Time. This is what we do. We're here for you. We're here to help you and your friends and your family through this journey, to take the painful journey and make sure that you're not doing this alone. Many times people feel uncomfortable. It hurts. My friend just had a loss. She wanted that baby. She was waiting for this baby. She had already counted down exactly at what point of the year the child would be born, who will be born at the same time, how many simchas will happen in the family at that time, and a step further, which yeshiva she will send her child to. If it will be a boy, what type of name we're going to give this child. And you were part of that dream. You were part of helping her make her decisions as she was going on, step by step, day by day, waiting for the simcha. You're hurting, and she's hurting. You're uncomfortable. It's difficult to face her. It's hard to go over to your friend when everything in her life stopped and your life is moving on. It's hard to face a sister when you're pregnant and she's not. It's difficult as a mother to go over to your daughter and say, my lovely daughter, I know it's hard. We're there for you. While at the same time, you're also in pain. So the question starts, what can I do to help her? How can I comfort her? What can I do practically to make sure that even though she's really alone, I will support her as much as possible? I truly believe that everyone means to be caring and sensitive, and no one wants to say the wrong thing. So firstly, be there for your friend, listen, validate, let them talk. You could say, I'm sorry for what happened, acknowledge her pain, but let her talk. Listen, listen, and listen. Avoid sentences like, I was there. Avoid sentences like, I understand your pain. Avoid sentences like, this would have been an unhealthy baby. Be happy that you lost the baby. Hashem must love you. And lastly, oh, you have other children at home. Just be satisfied with what you have. Acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge that it hurts and allow her to cry. Secondly, and this is only if you're close to this friend or only if you're close to your sister or close to the family member, and the bar to measure of what's considered close and the bar to measure if you really could step forward is if you'd be there for your friend or family member in times of simcha, if you'd be there in times of joy and you offer her a source of comfort at that point, then this is definitely the time to be there for her. Be there in a practical way. Offer her suppers, offer her lunches, offer some babysitting, or pick up the phone and say, maybe there's something that I could do for you right now to make your life a bit easier. Thirdly, this is not a time about solutions. We're not trying to solve problems. We're not trying to come up with solutions. We're not trying to figure out the whys of how this happened. One of the steps of dealing with grief and one of the steps of trying to recover from a loss is starting at first. You'll see your sibling in pain. You'll see your friend in pain. You'll see them shocked. You might see her crying. Following that, you'll see her blaming. Oh, it was a doctor's fault. Oh, I carried too much. Oh, I was up too late at night. I didn't take my medication. I did take my medication. And then the guilt. I should have. I could have. There are no solutions right now. It's one of the stages so that eventually she'll be able to move on to the next step, which is recovery. You can't move on before you go through those steps. Allow her to blame. Allow her to feel guilty. Recommendations at this point of, oh, I knew this doctor, that was a perfect doctor, you must go to that doctor and check out, for sure that doctor has the answer. Leave that for later. A time steps in, and at some point we will recommend a good doctor. And every time we make a recommendation, it's based on the issues that she was experiencing, the problems that came up in previous pregnancies. There are many doctors, many issues, and many problems, and then there are solutions. Leave that for us, leave that for the professional, and just allow your friend, just allow your sister to vent and to talk. Eventually, she'll be able to move on. We need to remember that your friend or your sister or sibling that just gave birth to a stillbirth is a kippur. She needs to recover, she needs to recuperate equally as someone that just delivered a baby. Many times even more so than someone that just had a baby. The emotional trip and the emotional upheaval that a woman has after a stillbirth, that in itself makes the recovery 10 times harder. Keep that in mind. Don't expect her to suddenly go out on trips. Don't expect her to function normally. Don't expect her to be able to carry on with household activities when really she just delivered her baby. Saying that, oh, the baby doesn't keep her up at night, so really she should have strength. She's not kept up with the baby, but she's kept up with sleepless nights of tears in her pillow. That can drain her. They will move on when they're ready to. Many times I get this phone call of, it's 3 months. What's going on with my sister? You must do something about my sister. And there's a time clock, it's 2 weeks, 6 weeks. 6 weeks you go to the doctor, you go to your checkup, and now she's supposed to be functioning perfectly fine. She will move on when she's ready. It could take 2 weeks, it could take 6 weeks, it could take 3 months, and it could sometimes take even more than a year, depending on what's going on in her life. Give her the time, give her the space, and when she's ready to move on, she will move on. There's a special gift from Hashem that when the hormones go crashing and all your levels are in upheaval, along with that come tears. Tears for an outsider are difficult. It's hard to watch your friend crying. It's hard to watch her in pain, and we don't know what to do. We're uncomfortable with that. But tears are healing. One of the gifts that the Ribbono Shel Olam gives us is that the hormones that are released and produced while crying in itself could heal a person. Allow your sister to cry. Sometimes it might mean putting your arms around her shoulder and being there to hug her. But let her cry. Your sister, your friend, is in pain. And we need to remember that when someone's in pain, it's like it's a raw open wound. And it hurts. Our goal is not to put a scab on top of that wound. Our goal is to try to help them heal. By speaking about pregnancies, by speaking about children, by speaking about carriages, it hurts. It's not jealousy. It's a trigger that reminds them of their pain. It's a trigger that tells them that I once had a dream that was real. I was supposed to be walking with a carriage. Not that I want my sister's carriage. My sister's carriage doesn't make me feel any better. But I wanted to walk with a carriage. So every time we talk about pregnancy, every time we talk about those carriages, every time we talk about children around us, specifically following the loss, this gives them a reminder of their dream that is no more. Don't stop the conversation, but try to avoid having the conversation if possible. We need to be aware many times that even though we mean well, sometimes the right thing is to step back. Let your friend in pain, let your sister in pain be the leader, and you take the lead. If she wants company, if she wants to talk, be there to listen, be there to give her a hug. And sometimes the right thing is to step down and take 2 steps backwards, give her a space, let her recover. If she knows you're there for her, she'll come back to you when she's ready. I myself experienced 10 losses, the last one ending in a stillbirth. I've been there in many different ways. Sometimes I wanted to talk to a friend. Sometimes I just needed my space. Sometimes I just had that one sister or that one sibling or that one friend that I wanted to reach out to. And sometimes I just needed my space. But knowing that friends and family were there for me, knowing that if I even wanted to, I had someone to reach out to, knowing that I had support, That's what kept me going. When Avram Avinu was going with Yitzchak, and he heard a bas kol saying that his Yitzchak was going to be the Akedah, what was so different between Avram and Sarah that Avram, when he heard the news, was able to keep strong and continue doing what was needed to be done, and Sarah, who was equally as big in Avodas Hashem, equally in a high level, we all know she was an Ein B'Yisrael, we all know what a tzedekah she was. Why wasn't she able to survive the news? Why wasn't she able to hear that her son Yitzchak was going to be a carbon to none other than Hashem? And then, once she heard that, she expired and her neshama left. What was the difference between Avram and Sarah? Let's look into the pasuk. And if we see by Avram it says, Vayelchu shneim yachdav. Avram was walking with someone at his side. When someone goes through a loss, when someone goes through a trauma, when someone goes through a painful, difficult journey, what helps him survive? What helps him experience the journey of pain and experience this trauma and still be able to survive and pick his head up? This is the Vayelchu shneim yachdav. It's a role that we all play for supporting our friends, for showing them and letting them know that we're there for them. When they're ready for us, we're here to support you. That's the only way you can survive a trauma. That's the only way you can survive a loss of a dream that was real. There are many services that are available, both for friends and family and siblings, and for the couple themselves experiencing a loss. We're here for you. A Time has created a program so that when someone experiences a loss, you're not alone. My bracha to you is, may you never experience loss, and may Hashem give you kayach and strength to be a source of comfort to your friends, family, siblings, and everyone around you.